Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. If you're watching through Facebook, make sure you hit the follow button. If you're watching through YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We are here to discuss the ongoing crisis in southern Cameroon and Ambazonia. Today, we're talking about the symbolic politics or real change that we have seen across the years. How Ambazonian struggle can fit in with the Yaoundé's politics going on in Yaoundé, where they're trying to elect a new president, and definitely we know the outcome of that election. Today we are going to be talking about much of the controversial stuff happening in Ambazonia. Okay, my talking point will be the state of the Southern Cameroon struggle and the nation at edge of recognition. How the Yaoundé has always tried to manipulate the international community on the progress of the war in the past 9 years. Okay. Please make sure you share before we start the show. Make sure you share across the board. Make sure you share so that we have a good audience. Okay. Make sure you share that and share that. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go straight to the talking point for today. The conflict in southern Cameroon, today called Ambazonia, has entered its ninth year with no sign of resolution. What began in 2016 as a peaceful protest by lawyers and teachers demanding respect for the common law and the Anglo-Saxon educational system has since transformed into one of Africa's most entrenched independence struggles. The government of Cameroon refusal to dialogue and its heavy-handed crackdown on armed demonstrators triggered an escalation that has left thousands dead, over 1 million displaced, and entire towns reduced to rubble. Yet, through the dust of Boya's hills and the silence of Bamenda's ghost towns, one message endures: Ambazonians people have not surrendered. At the heart of the struggle lie 5 central pillars. First is the right to self-determination, which Ambazonians argue is enshrined in international law and violated since the dissolution of the federal system in 1972. Second is the shift from protest to armed resistance after civilians face bullets and arrests in the streets. The third angle is the problem of fractured leadership. Several competing interim governments abroad and rival commanders at home, all claiming legitimacy. The fourth angle is the staggering human cost. Tens of thousands dead, schools closed for years, children left without education, and the widespread humanitarian suffering. The fifth angle are the legal and historical argument. Ambazonian activists maintain that theirs is not a secessionist bid, but a restoration of sovereignty betrayed after the 1961 reunification. Despite the immense suffering, the movement is adapting. Diaspora communities are building parallel institutions, schools, local council, humanitarian relief network that operate independently of Yaoundé. Diplomats and lawyers are pushing Ambazonians' case at the United Nations and African Union, while activists highlight atrocities to shift international opinion. There are also calls for transition from guns to governance, consolidating a political strategy that gives Ambazonia the credibility of a functioning proto-state rather than the image of fragmented militia. It is against this backdrop that news of Cameroon's government proposal to appoint Philomene Yang as vice president has surfaced. On the surface, such a move could be frame as a gesture of inclusion and power sharing. Yet history reminds Ambazonia that these symbolic appointments often function as political concession rather than genuine effort to resolve the underlying crisis. For many, the struggle is not about representation with Cameroon's political structure, but about justice, dignity, and the right to determine their own future. A vice presidency without structural change will be nothing more than a cosmetic solution to silence growing international scrutiny. Accepting Yang as vice president without addressing the long-standing grievances of marginalization, military occupation, and the systematic injustice risks being perceived as manipulation rather than reconciliation. Joining peace cannot come from positions or titles alone. It requires meaningful dialogue, structural reform, demilitarization, and above all, respect for the will of the people. The fundamental question, therefore, is not whether Ambazonian can accept Yang as vice president, but whether Yaoundé is willing to address the heart of the crisis and negotiate in good faith. Anything short of this will only prolong the circle of distrust and resistance. Meanwhile, Cameroon itself is showing signs of fatigue. President Paul Biya's regime is weakened by corruption and aging leadership and a military stretch thin across multiple conflicts. Economic decline, unemployment, and discontent in francophone regions add to the instability. For Ambazonian, this fragility may open a narrow window of opportunity if the movement is prepared to act with unity and discipline. In conclusion, Ambazonia's struggle is at a crossroad. It has achieved symbolic recognition on the global stage, amplified by diaspora activism and grassroots resilience. Yet, the path to full independence remains steep, requiring both internal cohesion and strategic diplomacy. As one community organizer put it, we are not rebels, we are people. We are not seceding, we are restoring. We will not erase, we will not be erased. The unanswered question is not whether Ambazonia will continue to march for freedom, but whether the world and Cameroon will recognize it when it arrives. That was my talking point there. You've seen the diversity of the message. The position of the Prime Minister will not help in any way. But Cameroon's government has a lot of things to to do within that framework. But how can they do this? Okay, so we'll be looking at the how Cameroon government is prolonging the crisis, but not solving the crisis, because once you prolong it, okay, so we're looking at those points that we see Cameroon government trying to use the military, use the elites, use the chiefs, the funds, using all these people that are not helping them. They want to make believe that they're trying to solve the problem, but the root causes of the problem remains there. The position of the vice president will not help in any way to quell the fire that the Ambazonian people are going through, right? So whatever they're doing now, they're only putting more flame to the fire, okay, and will not solve the problem in any way, shape, or form. So that is what we are looking at, and we're going to be talking about those things that are projecting Cameroon as the worst democracy in the world for not resolving the crisis in southern Cameroon, and with the oldest dictatorship in the world. Paul Biya remained the worst dictator that cannot resolve its own problem. And they think that adding southern Cameroon will instead help the problem, but they are instead putting themselves into deep financial squabble. As we have seen along the years, the large amount of borrowing from international organizations, not able to pay back all these huge sums of money that they borrow from the international organization. And we see that happening. Okay, now look at what the Cameroon government is trying to do. One, they reject the rejection of external mediation. The Cameroon government, as we know, has firmly resisted third-party or foreign facilitated mediation effort. In fact, it declined mediation by Switzerland in 2022 and rebuffed African Union intervention, framing the Anglophone crisis strictly as an internal affair. Okay, this refusal undermines the credibility of any proposed solution and isolate the country from neutral platform that could foster meaningful dialogue. We saw the Canadian government came in, the Switzerland government came in, African Union came in, even the United States, the Senate, the House have forged some form of encouragement for a genuine meaning. Maroon Ambazonian region have been widely criticized as superficial. These initiatives were seen as commercial. These initiatives were seen as control and symbolic rather than addressing the fundamental demands for autonomy and federalism. Similarly, offering symbolic positions such as vice president position without addressing the deeper grievances amounts to promote politics rather than genuine reconciliation. The Grand National Dialogue, all what was discussed went nowhere. As we speak, even the parliamentarians, those people that attended this Grand National Dialogue, regretted their actions. Imagine they went for this dialogue to go and discuss the future of something. But what the regime did was that they picked some few elites, gave them some monies, then they asked them to go and say, that they want decentralization. Okay, whereas those people who called themselves the proud federalists were there, and they said, "Oh, okay, we can go and discuss this. Oh, we are proud federalists." They went back disappointed. Why? Because what they hoped for was not what the Yaoundé regime prepared. The one mistake Yaoundé regime is making is that they always organize negotiation processing, send their delegation there with a prepared agenda. You cannot have a negotiation process where you want to discuss the future of two countries. You are going there and bringing your own what you want. That is not going to work. That's imposition of what you want, not knowing that anything that has to do with mediation or negotiation has to do with two countries or two parties that come together and discuss with a mediator in the middle. And you cannot use your power, military power, to try to erase that. Okay, it will not work. Okay, this is not the era of that use military force to quell down what the people want. Okay, it will not work, and I don't see that working. Okay, in the long run. All right, that's it. So that's what we are trying to say. That all what the regime is doing from the Grand National Dialogue and all those has not worked and will not work. Okay. Number 3, we talk about the refusal to engage with all stakeholders. The government of Cameroon continues to leave key Ambazonian leaders' voices out of the conversation. For instance, many ANG group leaders boycotted official talks like the one in the Grand National Dialogue, citing predetermined agendas, like I just said, and lack of neutral facilitation. Without their meaningful inclusion, and appears more like orchestrated theater than authentic invitation to negotiate. The negotiation processes that happen, that's what we're talking about, that the regime predetermined the agendas, and there was a lack of neutral facilitation. You cannot ask the Canadian government to come and facilitate the process, but you are imposing on them the agenda. Okay, And okay, the fourth point is the perpetration of military response over dialogue. Okay, Yaounde's narrative frames the Ambazonian Anglophone movement as terrorism, and the state response has largely been militarized, repression, arrest, and the force have been, have taken precedence over political solutions. Okay, so this approach reinforces distrust and escalates conflict rather than de-escalating tension through dialogue or institutional reform. The regime still believe that using military can resolve problems. Okay, but you have seen the casualties, you have seen the how military are abandoning the military and traveling abroad. Most Cameroon military have traveled. Some of them will sell their rifles and leave. Okay, but that's what is happening. The last one will be the structural and institutional distrust. Decades of marginalization and clientelist government foster deep skepticism among the people of Southern Cameroon against the government and about their promises. The special status is model, it's a decentralization effort. The election delays are often viewed as underfounded or manipulated tools that the regime use. So many Ambazonians see this as a deliberate tactics to pacify dissent without addressing the root causes. And today we see the regime still doing the same thing, the same manipulation, the same thing over and over and over. Okay, without having any better results. The regime can do whatever they want, but they are not helping to solve the problem. Okay, take a listen to one of these brother, and we'll come back to this.
Good morning to all Anglophones in Cameroon. You have come too far and sacrificed too much to turn back now. This fight isn't just about today. It's about securing your identity, your dignity, and a future where your children can speak freely, learn freely, and live freely without fear. They may have tried to silence you and still try to silence you, but they can never erase the truth. Your language, your culture, and your rights matter. You are not asking for too much. You are simply demanding the respect and justice that every human being deserves. Never let anyone make you feel like your struggle is insignificant. Remember the ones who have paid the ultimate price. Those who stood tall even in the face of death. You owe it to them and to yourselves to keep the fire burning. Let their courage live through your actions, your unity, and your unbreakable will. Freedom is your right. Never forget that. You are not alone. The world is watching, and history will remember your strength.
Now that message was so clear from our brother, our African brother, who are those people who understand. They know the crisis. They know how the regime has been manipulating things, and okay, they know all those things. So there's no need to go much about ado about nothing. Okay, yes, and that is what happened. Yeah, this message has been sent by one of our elders. I'll read it, and so that you see how things have been going in. This is coming from the real elders. Okay, he said, "My precious, never again generation of Ambazonia. This message that I am about to write to you is for you. By never again generation, I mean any Ambazonian who is 50 years and below, and I have been privileged to have been born in the early 50s. And my aim here is to let you know how our country was before the overthrow of PM Ngomjua by Ahidjo, Amadou Ahidjo. Before our union with La République du Cameroon, the following things were enjoyed by our citizens. Our roads before the British left were stony paths called roads. A I grew up in Mutengene and I saw the condition of our roads before right there in Mutengene. Our roads started getting tired when we had our first PM Endeli. That was also when we had the PWD, the Public Work Department. At that time, you could drive either from Tiko or Limbe to Wom or Nkambe without being interrupted or stop on your journey, except very rarely will you see the town messenger stopping vehicles and asking for your tax. We had police. He said we had policemen whose duty was to maintain peace and order. They never carried guns. What they had was a baton stick. If an arrest was to make, the officer comes to you, greets you, and tells you why you were being arrested. Then he explains your rights to you. You scarcely found any resistance from the person being arrested. The highest you can find was the criminal trying to escape. The only military men who were allowed to carry guns were the mobile wings. They were rarely seen in public, and no security officials were ever seen in off licenses. We had very different types of beer, and all came from Nigeria. Alcoholic content was very lesser than what we had today in Cameroon. The popular beer we had in Cameroon today, that is Beaufort Ngange, was a contraband in the then West Cameroon. Imagine. Beer was a contraband. Imagine. The Beaufort that people drink now like this. You see how these people are they like drinking. This is not the culture. This is not our culture. You see the way our people drink today is copied from Yaoundé and Douala style of life. Okay, the letter continues. It said we had very few accidents on our highways because we had the motor vehicle inspectors heading by commissioners. Their main function was to inspect motor vehicles for brakes, first aid kits, and other parts of the vehicle that can cause accident. We had no makosa in the bars. What we had was nightlife music by Nigerian and Ghanaians. Life was easy. There was a lot of food to eat, and primary school was 8 years instead of the present 7 years. I was privileged to be the last batch to do the standard 6 program, which ended in 1964. Crimes were very rare, and much of it was limited to stealing. In Fako, farmers made a lot of money by cultivation of banana, coffee, and cocoa, and the Bakweri Cooperative Union of Farmers coordinated all these products. In every division, they had their own union that coordinated this same product. Okay, all of these things we had. That is had the airports, the seaport, the power cam, and in Fako even railway lines which took the CDC and Pamol product from the hinterland to the wharf in Tiko and the seaport in Victoria. Why am I telling you all this? So that you may know how we Southern Cameroonians led our lives until the overthrow of our vibrant PM, Augustine Gomjoa. It is worth noting that in trying to oust our PM, the gendarmes who were sent to invade our country were simply outmaneuvered by our gallant, fearless mobile wing, who surrendered to a contingent of La République du Cameroun gendarmerie in Likumba Hill. Hence, the banning of the mobile wing when PM Gomjoa was finally subdued. Aijo was greatly afraid of the mobile wings, and when Southern Cameroon, if you want a peaceful, quiet, safe, and powerful, prosperous country, then avoid the coming election, because it will tell the world that we are serious in obtaining our freedom. You have to bear the suffering by willingly implementing more ghost towns, to such a level that La République du Cameroon cannot survive until she leaves our country. So this is a letter coming from one of our elders. Okay, I'm very glad, we have heard a lot of things that we have been saying a lot here about all our infrastructures, our stuff that have been misused, and stuff that have just gone, that we don't know what happened to them. So thank you for listening. Thank you, and God bless you. God bless the people of Southern Cameroon and Bazuni.